The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Kira Revan, and this is the Sunday 7.
On this week's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we head off to space for the historic Polaris Dawn mission, catch up on the legal dramas for Apple and Google, discover how AI is powering speed cameras in Manchester, and learn about the mysterious Scottish Sphinx. If you're enjoying today's episode, please do like and share, or even leave a review. And remember, we're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7. But before we start, it was on this day in 1830 that the Liverpool to Manchester rail line was officially opened. The line was built by George Stephenson, the main inventor of the railroad locomotive. It was the world's first intercity passenger railway line operated solely by steam-driven locomotives. And the opening saw Stephenson's famous rocket train lead a procession of 6 engines with 4 carriages each. Exploring space is a complex operation, as we found out recently, thanks to Boeing's Starliner. Even though it did eventually return to Earth in one piece, the 2 astronauts it brought to the International Space Station are now stuck there until February next year. It's been hugely embarrassing for Boeing and for NASA, but this week did see an historic commercial space mission, which could open the door for an accelerated investment into exploring mankind's next frontier. The SpaceX mission, known as Polaris Dawn, had an ambitious program of activity as a 4-person Dragon X craft planned to carry out the first ever commercial spacewalk and test brand new slimline SpaceX spacesuits. They began by breaking a record for the highest orbit ever achieved by a private space mission.
Dragon, you've soared to over 1,400 kilometers, and you're farther from Earth than any other person since the last Apollo mission over 50 years ago.
Copy that, SpaceX. We all look forward to our friends at the Artemis program to take us to even greater heights.
The project is a joint venture between Gerard, Isaacman, a billionaire who owns payment processing company Shift4, and Elon Musk's SpaceX. Musk in particular is keen to push forward on space exploration, and he's found a willing partner in Isaacman, who was on board Polaris Dawn and was the first through the hatch to experience space in his new SpaceX suit.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid, progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
Good call. Approaching the top of the mobility aid. SpaceX. Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
The Dragon X craft is different from traditional NASA designs, as there's no traditional airlock. Instead, the whole vessel is depressurized before the hatch is opened. It all seemed to go without a hitch, and Isaacman explained before they left Earth what they were hoping to achieve.
Polaris Dawn is the first of, up to 3 missions that are contemplated. So we're going to vent down the vehicle and conduct a spacewalk. And we're going to test out a new spacesuit that the engineers at SpaceX here have been developing. It's to learn really as much about this new generation suit that SpaceX has built, and then the entire operation associated with it. I'll be one of the crew members that goes outside the vehicle. Sarah will be as well. And then Kit and Anna are going to be inside the vehicle in kind of supporting capacity and be the eyes and ears while we're outside.
The second person out of SpaceX craft was Sarah Gillis, who was a senior space engineer for SpaceX.
So for the spacewalk, based on the vehicle design and what we can support, we have about 2 hours end to end for both depressurizing external operations and then repressurizing the spacecraft. But we'll all get suited up, depressurize the spacecraft, and then 2 people, one at a time, will go outside, come back in before we repressurize the spacecraft.
The fact that everything went so well will delight Elon Musk and the SpaceX team, particularly after the shambles that the Boeing Starliner mission has turned out to be. CBS News senior correspondent Mark Strassman says it's a huge step forward for SpaceX, and in particular, their new spacesuit.
This is a real milestone, the first time a company and not a country has tried a spacewalk. SpaceX's long-term goal is to colonize the moon and Mars, and for that, it says it'll need thousands of these spacesuits. So this morning's spacewalk is the first step in developing that capability. The Polaris Dawn mission, if all things go well, is scheduled to splash down this weekend.
There's been plenty of big tech news on planet Earth this week, with Apple holding their latest event last Monday, the EU's highest court handing down some bad news for Apple and for Google, and the exciting return of a short-lived legend. When it comes to all things tech, there's only one man we trust to steer us through the maze of misinformation, and that's the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. So Will, firstly, were your predictions from last Sunday correct about the Apple launch event?
God loves a trier, and I'd rate myself at about 7.5 out of 10. My hunch on the iPhone was pretty much bang on. Better screen, faster processor, some cool camera features, and a big focus on the new Apple Intelligence. I also predicted that there wasn't going to be a major upgrade for the Apple Watch this time, despite some predicting a game-changing new watch. It got slightly thinner and a slightly larger screen. There was a decent health focus overall too, with the Apple AirPods Pro 2 becoming an actual hearing aid with a new software update, and the Apple Watch getting ready to detect signs of breathing irregularities that may cause the potentially life-threatening sleep apnea. Overall, this was actually a fairly cool set of Apple announcements. Lots of big tech changes for the iPhone and other devices.
Is there one particular item that has you reaching for your Platinum Revolut card?
If I was spending the Smart 7 budget, I'd probably go and get my hands on the latest iPhone 16 Pro Max. But given the model I'm after would cost me around £1,400, I think I'm going to hold off for now. But this thing has the potential to do more than my daily laptop. There's some great new photography and video features too, including this amazing new slow-mo feature that would have me looking like Steven Seagal walking away from a huge explosion in a straight-to-video movie.
There's a lot of talk about Apple Intelligence, but will it actually be available in the UK and the EU?
Thanks to the joy of Brexit, it looks like UK users will get Apple Intelligence for when it launches in October, but currently it's not entirely clear what users in the EU are going to get, because beta test versions have been geo-blocked, likely due to regulatory issues caused by Europe's new Digital Markets Act. Users in the EU have been getting round this restriction by registering a US App Store account while testing the beta version on their iPhone 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max. Apple say they're going to launch French and Spanish versions of Apple Intelligence in 2025, so it looks like they're working to get over the EU-related hurdles.
Speaking of the EU, there was a fascinating decision this week from the EU's highest court. Tell me, why are they forcing Ireland to take €13 billion back from Apple?
They've been ordered to pay a whopping amount of money by Europe's top court to stop this 8-year row. The European Commission had accused Ireland of giving Apple illegal tax advantages, but Apple constantly argued against the need for these to be repaid. Apple said they were disappointed and accused the European Commission of trying to retroactively change the rules. This monster tax bill covers 1991 to 2014 and is related to how 2 Apple businesses in Ireland were treated for tax purposes. Other companies simply couldn't get the same kind of tax advantages, and incredibly, Ireland has actually been trying to avoid taking Apple's money. This is a huge win for Europe in its efforts to stop big companies from gaming the system.
Is Ireland still seen as a tax haven for big tech?
It certainly has attracted the biggest names in tech since Atari rocked up in Ireland in the 80s to make arcade machines. The EU said Ireland saw the largest amount of profit shifting in 2019 due to its low tax rates. But fines like this one for Apple will focus the minds of tech companies who moved into the country as many as 30 years ago. Now it's down to Ireland to decide what it's going to do with Apple's incredible €13 billion windfall, which the Prime Minister says may be invested in infrastructure for the next generation.
Google got bad news too.
Yeah, definitely a stinky week for tech companies. The EU court has ruled that Google must pay a €2.4 billion fine that it's been kicking down the road since 2017 through a number of different legal appeals. The fine was handed to the search giant for abusing the market dominance of its shopping comparison service. The European Court of Justice said the EU was right to find Google's conduct discriminatory. Understandably, Google said it was disappointed with the ruling. I bet it is, particularly since it was also taken to court last week by the US government over its ad tech business.
Will these billion-dollar fines actually impact the way these tech giants behave?
The fines are racking up, and with more and more of them being awarded, it looks like tech companies will be dragged kicking and screaming to the table, because fines this large do hurt, even when you're richer than God.
And finally, exciting news for fans of slightly clunky avian games, right?
I had to triple check this when I heard the news, but Flappy Bird is back. Remember the game that captured everyone's attentions with around 100 million of us playing it for a few months back in 2013? And then it disappeared when the creator Dong Nguyen said the game was too addictive. Well, it's back on mobiles in 2025 and it's promising to come to other platforms before Christmas this year. Foreman Audley Q, as the new owners say, it will keep the original game design but introduce new modes, characters and multiplayer challenges. Surely nailed on for Game of the Year, right?
Still to come this Sunday 7, Australia takes action on teen phones and Scotland's mysterious Sphinx. There's been increasing concern from governments across the world about social media and its impact on kids and teens in particular. Most social networks have a notional age limit of 13, but historically there has been little enforcement of that limit by the networks, and it appears that much younger children are frequently exposed to social media and its content. There's been a concerted pushback from regulators concerned about the addictive nature of social platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Now Australia is moving to ban children under 16 from social media altogether, according to Australian PM Anthony Albanese.
I want to see kids off their devices and onto the footy fields and the swimming pools and the tennis courts. We want them to have real experiences with real people because we know that social media is causing social harm. We're committed to introducing legislation before the end of this year for age verification to make sure that we get young people away from this social harm.
He made the announcement before a government review is completed, and experts are warning that it may have no significant effect. In Finland, they're taking things a step further and removing screens from classrooms. The town of Rimaki has ditched laptops and tablets and has gone back to old-fashioned pen and paper. Minna Peltapuro is a clinical neuropsychologist who is advising the town on how best to manage the change away from technology.
Total amount of time should be minimum, so not hours spending in front of screen, something less. Brain are very vulnerable with multitasking, especially when you are this young age, so they cannot manage well. You are doing math in computer and then you go to check Instagram, is there any messages, and then you come back to math, and then you go to Snapchat and then you come back to math.
Scotland is not necessarily the first place you might think of when it comes to climate change, particularly when this summer has seen more blistering heat waves across southern Europe and the US. In fact, July was the first month in 13 months that we didn't break a global temperature record. But just because Scotland is further north doesn't mean that it's not affected. Scotland's third highest mountain in the Cairngorms National Park plays host to a persistent patch of snow, which has become known as the Sphinx. In the whole of the 20th century, the snow patch only melted 3 times, but it's now on its 4th consecutive year of melting away entirely. Snow expert Iain Cameron is the author of The Vanishing Ice, and he says that it's quite shocking to see the impact of global temperature changes.
This is really one of the very few pieces of snow left in the whole of the UK. Scotland only has a couple of patches left, and this is one of them. And really this is the closest thing that Scotland has to a glacier. The Sphinx itself is actually quite a bit smaller than it was even when I visited at the weekend. It's lost about a third of its size. It now measures 5 metres by 5 metres by about a metre of depth, and it's far smaller for the time of year than I would expect it to see, and that's been the pattern for the last few years. This patch of snow only melted 3 times in the 20th century, remarkably, but what we're going to see this year, 2024, is going to melt for the 4th consecutive year, and that for me is a real indicator of what the wider climate is doing. Things are changing.
Still to come this Sunday 7, watch out for AI-powered speed cameras and why the government is planning a junk food ad ban.
Right after this.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.
Welcome back.
This week saw a detailed review of the NHS by the new Labour government, which warned that the health system is at critical point and in danger of collapse. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is vowing not to put more money into the service, instead pledging to fix the system and deliver a 10-point plan to reimagine the NHS by the spring. On his to-do list are major public health steps intended to tackle childhood obesity, which will include a ban on junk food ads on television and online, along with a ban on energy drinks that are high in caffeine and sugar. Professor Steve Turner, the president of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, says the government should also be looking at things like comprehensive free school meal programmes.
I think the impact would be on a number of different levels. For children themselves, who are obviously the most important in all this, it would mean that we'd be able to be sure that they'd be having at least one warm, nutritious meal every school day, which is a big thing. We know that if you feed children, and to be fair, adults as well, they generally work better, they think better, they behave better, and in the school environment, they learn better. It will have an impact on obesity. It's not going to solve obesity overnight, but it will have an impact. It'll also probably have an impact on dental health, and that's all related to diet. And finally, the bigger picture is that children are our foundation as a society, and I think that this would be a statement that we, as a society, value our children and want to do our best for children.
Katherine Jenner of the Obesity Health Alliance says apart from government regulations changing, parents need to begin to rethink their own approach to shopping and how they shop for their kids.
If we're given really good, clear labelling and understanding of what's in our food, then we can make a responsible choice about it. But actually, that's not what happens. If you go into a supermarket and have a look at a food, you'll see it's covered with claims saying no added sugar, when actually it's full of sugars, intrinsic sugars made from the fruit, for instance. This happens all the time, everywhere, and there's really a lack of really good sound education in our schools, because as soon as you leave the school gates, you're then confronted with all of the advertising, the marketing, the promotions. Parents are not given a good understanding of what food is. It's not really out there. So there's not a huge amount you can do. Even if you know what a healthy diet looks like, it's then difficult to go and purchase it if it's not available or if it's not affordable to you.
There's a trial of new speed camera technology underway in Manchester. A company called AccuSensus is using speed cameras which are equipped with AI to detect different kinds of motoring offences. It's part of a campaign by Greater Manchester Police to encourage drivers not to use their mobile phones while driving. Any image that's flagged by the AI system will then be checked by a human operator. But the new system has potential to catch far more offenders than traditional speed cameras. Rhydian Jones is a motoring expert for insurersconfused.com, and he explains to the Sunday 7 how the new AI-based system works.
So these cameras used advanced monitoring, which can see inside a vehicle to analyse driver activity. They take images from two different angles, which can reveal if drivers have their phones to their ears or if they're wearing a seatbelt or not. These can then be shared with police forces, and they will analyse to see if the driver has fulfilled any motoring offences.
What makes it different from regular speed cameras, and can I still contest a charge?
So AI speed cameras have far more intelligence and depth of what they can see when it comes to comparing them with regular speed cameras. It's the element of being able to see drivers on their phones or wearing a seatbelt that makes them much more advanced and detailed than a regular speed camera. You can and should be able to appeal a charge, much like a regular speeding ticket. But given the photographic evidence these AI cameras have, it could be far more challenging to be successful with an appeal.
Tell us more about the driving fines calculator.
So many UK drivers get fined for motoring offences that they didn't even know existed. So to help drivers have a better understanding of this, we've actually set up a calculator where you can put in the details of your driving offence and find out how much you might get fined for that offence.
What if I was driving a Tesla in auto mode and the AI camera caught me holding my phone?
You should still have your full attention on the road, even whilst in Tesla Autopilot. And this is because the car may not always detect oncoming traffic or pedestrians. So the same rules would apply as if you were driving any other vehicle. You could still be caught and fined.
The western lowland gorilla is a native of Africa, and they're on the critically endangered list according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature. They're the largest and heaviest great apes left in the world, although there are only about 300,000 left in the wild. However, thanks to the efforts of researchers in Germany who have developed a new AI-powered gorilla tracker, they'll now be able to learn a lot more about gorillas' behaviours, their movements, and observe any potential disease outbreaks, which will allow preventative measures to be implemented. The project is a joint venture between the Berlin Zoo and the Hasso Plattner Institute. spacesuit. Gerard Melo is the project leader at the Department of Artificial Intelligence and Intelligent Systems and says it's essential that we learn more about the animals and that the zoo setting gives a unique opportunity to do that.
So Western lowland gorillas, as well as all other kinds of gorillas, are critically endangered, and so the population has been shrinking and there's the risk of extinction. And because of this, we need to really track the population and make sure that the developments are healthy. And so the idea is to set up cameras in different locations and track what is going on and immediately see when there's a new disease or if certain gorillas have disappeared. So we've been developing these ideas now in our lab, but we wanted to test it, and flying all the way to the Congo Republic is quite difficult. So we contacted the zoo here in Berlin, and they were very happy to work with us. And so we've set up 3 cameras here, and they're capturing video footage of these 6 gorillas that live here. And so we're testing our ideas and testing the artificial intelligence as well as the satellite connection here.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself can already be stressful, and adding new fall routines into the mix can make it feel impossible. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason why 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Care.com helps you find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Find care that fits your budget and schedule with Care.com and get the help you need.